The ultimatum. The first sign that something was wrong came when every satellite in Earth's orbit simultaneously went offline. One moment, the global communications network was functioning normally. The next, millions of screens worldwide displayed. Nothing but static. Commander Sophia Chen stood in the United Earth Defense Force Command Center, watching as technicians frantically tried to restore connections. 20 years of military service had taught her to recognize the difference between technical malfunctions and deliberate interference. This was definitely the latter. "Status report," she demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "All orbital systems are down," responded Lieutenant Patel. "We're completely blind up there. Ground-based telescopes are being repositioned, but—" He stopped mid-sentence, staring at his screen in disbelief. Chen followed his gaze. The massive display at the front of the room had flickered to life, showing a real-time image from one of the few remaining operational telescopes in the Atacama Desert. Against the backdrop of stars hung a vessel of impossible proportions. Its hull gleamed with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously, creating a disorienting visual effect. The ship was easily 20 kilometers long, with a design that defied human engineering principles. "That's no asteroid," Chen whispered. Humanity had encountered alien species before, peaceful traders from nearby star systems, curious explorers, but nothing like this. Nothing that screamed warship in every aspect of its design. "Commander," called out Communications Officer Rivera, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies worldwide." Chen nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and the image of the ship was replaced by a figure that only vaguely resembled a humanoid. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, the being had an exoskeleton that shifted colors like oil on water. Its forearms ended in appendages that resembled both hands and tools. What might have been its face consisted of a cluster of sensory organs, arranged in no pattern Chen could recognize. When it spoke, the voice was surprisingly melodic, though the words carried an unmistakable coldness. "People of Earth," the translation software rendered. "I am Overseer Zalatrix of the Dominion. Your world has been assessed and found acceptable for integration. Your species has demonstrated sufficient resilience and adaptability to serve our collective." Chen felt her blood run cold. The being continued without pause. "The terms of your ascension are simple. You will provide a tribute of 10% of your population, to be selected by our algorithms for optimal genetic diversity. These conscripts will serve as the foundation for a new Dominion battle force. This is a singular honor. Your species will gain protection and purpose within our empire, which spans 17,000 worlds." The creature's sensory cluster pulsed with bioluminescence. "You have 7 days to prepare the tribute. Resistance would be inadvisable." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Within hours, the United Earth Council had convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered in the Geneva complex, the center of Earth's unified government since the climate wars of the 2080s. "We cannot possibly comply with these demands," said Councillor Okamura of the Pacific Alliance. "They're asking for 800 million people. And if we refuse?" countered Representative Silva of the South American Federation. "You've seen the scans. That ship could reduce our major cities to ash in minutes." The argument continued, voices rising as fear and anger battled for dominance. Commander Chen stood silently at the back of the chamber, watching the world's leaders grapple with an impossible choice. "There may be another option," said a quiet voice. All eyes turned to Dr. Elena Reyes, director of the Exodus Initiative. For decades, her program had been considered little more than an expensive insurance policy, preparation for a catastrophe that most hoped would never come. "The overseer mentioned that they've assessed our world," Reyes continued. "But I don't think they understand who we are. Humanity doesn't respond well to ultimatums." She moved to the central holographic display and activated her presentation. A detailed map of the solar system appeared, with dozens of highlighted locations throughout. The Exodus Initiative was conceived after the climate wars as a safeguard against extinction-level threats, asteroid impacts, solar flares, biological weapons. We've been preparing for decades, building arc ships and hidden bases throughout the solar system. We're not as defenseless as they think. You're suggesting we fight? Asked President Mbeki incredulously. Reyes shook her head. I'm suggesting we leave. The room erupted in confusion. Reyes raised her hand for silence, not permanently, not in surrender, but strategically. The Dominion clearly operates on intimidation. They expect us to either comply or make a futile stand. They don't expect us to simply disappear. Over the next 3 days, as the Dominion ship maintained its silent vigil, Earth enacted the most ambitious evacuation in human history. The Exodus ships, massive vessels designed to sustain tens of thousands of people for years if necessary, were brought online. Hidden shipyards on Mars, Europa, and in the asteroid belt accelerated production schedules. Meanwhile, Dr. Reyes and her team worked feverishly to analyze the Dominion technology. Every scrap of data from the scans was scrutinized, compared against humanity's accumulated knowledge of alien engineering. They're impressive, Reyes admitted to Commander Chen during a rare break. But not invincible. Their FTL system uses a variant of the Alcubierre drive we've been developing. More refined, certainly, but recognizable. Chen frowned. Can we replicate it? Not exactly. But we can adapt our prototypes using what we've learned. Our ships won't be as fast as theirs, but they'll be capable of interstellar travel, and more importantly, they'll be scattered in hundreds of different directions. It would take them decades to track us all down. On the 5th day, the Overseer demanded a progress report. The Council, following Reyes's strategy, reported technical difficulties in organizing the tribute selection. They requested an extension, playing for time with bureaucratic excuses. The Overseer's patience was clearly wearing thin. To demonstrate our seriousness, it announced, we will remove a small population center. Moments later, reports came in that the city of Adelaide, Australia, population 1.4 million, had vanished, leaving only a perfectly circular crater. The demonstration had the opposite effect than intended. Where there had been debate, now there was unity. The evacuation accelerated, with millions of people secretly boarding ships each day. Priority was given to children, young adults, scientists, and others carrying crucial genetic and cultural diversity. Earth's knowledge, its art, literature, science, and history, was distributed across the fleet to ensure that no single loss could erase humanity's legacy. By the 6th day, nearly 30% of Earth's population had been evacuated. The Dominion, focused on its orbital scans for signs of military buildup, failed to notice the exodus happening through hidden launch facilities, underwater bases, and subterranean networks. When the 7th day arrived, Overseer Zalatrix materialized. In the council chamber, its form shimmering with barely contained anger. Your time has expired, it announced. Present your tribute selection immediately. President Mbeki stood, her face a mask of calm dignity. Overseer, on behalf of the United Earth Council, I must inform you that Earth declines your offer of integration. The Overseer's body flashed with colors that the translation software interpreted as both surprise and rage. This is not a negotiation. You will comply or face extinction. Neither, replied Mbeki. We have chosen a third path. At that moment, coordinated around the solar system, the remaining Exodus ships broke from their hiding places. Thousands of vessels ranging from small shuttles to massive arc ships activated their drives. The Dominion vessel immediately began firing, destroying dozens of ships in the first salvo. But there were too many, launching from too many locations. As the Overseer watched in disbelief, the translation software struggled to interpret its rapid color changes. What is this madness? It finally demanded. Where are you going? Commander Chen, who had remained on Earth as part of the rear guard, stepped forward. Exactly where we said, away from you. Humanity isn't confined to one world anymore. We've been a spacefaring species for centuries. The people you see leaving are just the beginning. They cannot escape, the Overseer insisted. The Dominion spans the galaxy. We will find them. Perhaps, Chen acknowledged. But consider the mathematics. 5,000 ships each taking a different route, at speeds approaching your own. How many centuries will it take your fleet to track them all down? And by then, how many colonies will each ship have established? The overseer's colors shifted to what might have been confusion. This scenario had never occurred in its experience. Worlds either submitted or fought. They didn't simply evacuate their population. We've studied your empire, Chen continued. You require submission, tribute, the appearance of control. But humanity has chosen a different path. We're not fighting. We're simply leaving. As the last scheduled evacuation ships departed Earth's atmosphere, carrying a total of 45% of humanity's population, Overseer Zalatrix returned to its vessel. The Dominion warship remained in orbit, its commanders paralyzed by indecision. Their entire conquest strategy relied on threatened force against a centralized planetary government. But humanity had decentralized itself among the stars. On Earth, the remaining population, those who had chosen to stay, watched the skies with a mixture of fear and hope. The exodus had begun. The question now was whether those who had fled would find safety, and whether those who remained would find freedom. Commander Chen stood at the window of the now empty council chamber, watching as distant flashes marked the departure of the last ships. She had chosen to remain behind, along with millions of others who would continue the resistance from Earth itself. The Dominion might control the planet, but they would soon discover that governing humans was far more difficult than conquering them. The real fight, she murmured to herself, is just beginning. Meanwhile, beyond the orbit of Neptune, the Exodus fleet prepared for its first jump to the stars. Dr. Reyes, aboard the flagship Horizon, watched as Earth diminished to a pale blue dot on the viewscreen. They were heading into complete uncertainty, beyond the protection of familiar stars. But they carried with them something the Dominion had never anticipated: the indomitable human spirit of exploration, adaptation, and defiance. Plot jump coordinates, she ordered. Let's show them what humanity can do. The ships disappeared one by one into the darkness, carrying the seeds of Earth to the stars. The Dominion had demanded tribute, but humanity had answered with exodus. It was not surrender, it was strategy. And in the vastness of space, the greatest empire would find that hunting down a scattered humanity might be its most costly mistake. The diaspora had begun. The diaspora 6 months after the exodus began, the scattered remnants of humanity were adjusting to life as interstellar nomads. The Exodus fleet had divided into hundreds of smaller convoys, each taking a different path away from Earth, using modified FTL technology reverse-engineered from the Dominion scans. Aboard the flagship Horizon, Dr. Elena Reyes stood in the observation deck, watching unfamiliar stars streak past. The ship carried 20,000 souls, scientists, engineers, artists, and children, along with the genetic samples of thousands more species from Earth. Every vessel in the fleet was a self-contained arc of humanity's legacy. Status report. She requested as Commander Liu, her second-in-command, entered the chamber. Convoy Delta 7 has established contact, Liu reported. They've found a habitable world on the edge of the Perseus Arm, well outside Dominion territory. They're beginning initial settlement. Reyes nodded. This was the 4th colony site reported in the past month. The diaspora strategy was working. Humanity was spreading itself too thin for the Dominion to effectively track and contain, and the Dominion? She asked. Liu's expression darkened. Our relays from the Sol system indicate they have established control over Earth's orbital infrastructure. They're having difficulty managing the ground population, though. Apparently, humans aren't proving to be cooperative subjects. A small smile touched Reyes's lips. The people who had chosen to remain behind were carrying out their part of the plan: passive resistance, sabotage, and a determined refusal to acknowledge Dominion authority. While the Exodus fleet established new colonies far from Dominion, those on Earth were making occupation as costly and frustrating as possible. Commander, interrupted the communications officer, we're picking up an unusual signal. Non-human origin, but definitely not Dominion either. Reyes and Liu exchanged glances. They had encountered minimal alien contact since the Exodus began. Deliberate choice, as they'd been avoiding populated systems. "Put it through," ordered Reyes. The main display activated, revealing a being unlike any they'd encountered before. Vaguely humanoid but with silvery, almost liquid-like skin and eyes that shimmered with bioluminescence, the alien regarded them with what appeared to be curiosity. "Greetings, wanderers," came the translated voice. "I am Ambassador Thelis of the Viridian Conclave. We have been observing your scattered migration with great interest." Reyes straightened. "I am Dr. Elena Reyes of Earth. How did you find us?" "Your exodus did not go unnoticed," replied Thelis. "The Dominion's frustration has echoed through subspace communications. A species that neither submits nor fights? You've become something of a legend already." Liu stepped forward. "Are you aligned with the Dominion?" A sound like crystalline laughter came from the alien. "Quite the opposite. The Conclave represents species who have hidden from Dominion expansion for centuries. We exist in the spaces between their territories, the regions they consider too insignificant to bother conquering." "And why contact us now?" Reyes asked, caution evident in her voice. "Because you've done what none of us dared. You've defied them openly and survived. More importantly, you've exposed a critical weakness in their strategy." Thelis leaned closer to the screen. "We would like to propose an alliance." Over the next few weeks, the Horizon rendezvoused with a Conclave vessel in the shadow of a nebula far from any charted routes. Ambassador Thelis revealed that the Viridian Conclave consisted of 17 distinct species, all living in hidden enclaves throughout the galaxy. For generations, they had evaded Dominion detection, building their strength and waiting for an opportunity to challenge the Empire's supremacy. "The Dominion's power relies on perception," explained Thelis during a strategy session. "They conquer through intimidation rather than actual military might. They simply cannot control the entire galaxy. Their forces are spread too thin, but until now no one has dared to call their bluff." The data shared by the Conclave painted a clearer picture of the Dominion structure. A central species, the same as Overseer Zalatrix, controlled a sprawling empire through a combination of advanced technology and psychological dominance. Their ships were indeed formidable, but nowhere near as numerous as their propaganda suggested. "They rely on conscripted forces from conquered worlds," noted Liu, "which is why they wanted human troops." "Precisely," Thelis confirmed. "Your species possesses remarkable adaptability and creativity, traits the Dominion values highly in their battle forces." Reyes studied the galactic map projected between them. "So what are you proposing?" "A coalition," said Thelis. "Not just between humans and the Conclave, but including all species who wish to be free from Dominion control. Your exodus has already inspired rebellion on a dozen subjugated worlds. If we coordinate our efforts, we could create a force the Dominion cannot ignore or defeat." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the situation was growing increasingly complex. The Dominion had established a provisional government, but found themselves unable to effectively control the population. Humans had learned from their long history of resistance movements. They worked in decentralized cells, communicating through methods invisible to Dominion surveillance. Commander Sophia Chen, now leading Earth's resistance network, received the encoded message from the Horizon with cautious optimism. The formation of a coalition beyond Earth's solar system meant they weren't alone in their struggle. "Pass this along through the network," she instructed her lieutenants. "The people need to know that the Exodus was only the beginning." The Dominion forces on Earth, frustrated by their inability to subdue the population through conventional means, had resorted to increasingly desperate measures. They had destroyed several major cities as examples, but rather than crushing resistance, these actions only hardened humanity's resolve. In orbit above Earth, Overseer Zalatrix received troubling reports from across the Dominion territories. The human diaspora had reached further than anticipated. Worse, wherever they went, they spread dangerous ideas: resistance, freedom, self-determination. Already 3 previously loyal subject worlds had ceased sending their tributes. citing technical difficulties in language that mockingly echoed Earth's initial response. "Find them," Zalatrix commanded its subordinates. "Track every human vessel and eliminate them. This contagion must be contained." But the task proved monumentally difficult. Earth's Exodus ships had scattered in all directions, many diving into regions where Dominion influence was thin or non-existent. More troubling was the fact that the humans had apparently made contact with the Viridian Conclave, a group the Dominion had long suspected existed but had never been able to locate. One standard year after the Exodus began, the first coordinated strike against Dominion authority took place. On 7 different worlds simultaneously, conscripted forces suddenly turned against their overseers. The rebellions had been carefully planned, targeting the Dominion's communication relays and command centers. On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, a massive vessel combining human, Viridian, and other allied technologies, Dr. Reyes and Ambassador Thelus observed the strategic display as reports flooded in. "Phase 1 is successful," reported Commander Liu. "Dominion communication networks are disrupted in 3 sectors. Their command structure is in disarray." Reyes nodded. "And our fleet?" "In position near the passage to Earth's solar system. The Dominion forces there have been isolated from the Imperial command." Thelus's bioluminescent eyes pulsed with what humans had come to recognize as determination. "Now we move to Phase 2, the liberation of Earth." The Coalition fleet emerged from FTL on the outskirts of the solar system. At its center flew the Horizon, now transformed into a formidable warship through Conclave technology. Alongside it were vessels representing 12 different species, all with grievances against the Dominion, all inspired by humanity's defiance. Titir. Dominion garrison above Earth detected the approaching fleet and prepared for battle. But they were cut off from reinforcements, their communications jammed by technology adapted from their own systems. On Earth, Commander Chen activated the final phase of the resistance plan. Across the planet, hidden weapons, fabricated in secret, over months of occupation, were deployed against Dominion ground forces. It wasn't a conventional war. It was asymmetric warfare on a global scale, with millions of civilians suddenly revealing themselves as combatants. The space battle was brief but intense. The Dominion warships, designed to intimidate rather than fight extended engagements, found themselves outmaneuvered by the Coalition's diverse fleet. Tactics developed independently by a dozen different species proved impossible for the Dominion's centralized command structure to counter. When the Coalition forces breached the Dominion flagship, they found Overseer Zalatrix preparing to transmit a desperate plea for reinforcements. The Overseer's color patterns shifted rapidly when confronted by the delegation, Dr. Reyes, Ambassador Thelus, and representatives from 10 other species. "Impossible," Zalatrix declared. "The Dominion cannot be defeated." "It already has been," replied Reyes calmly. "Not just here, but across 17 systems. Your empire is collapsing, Overseer. Not because we destroyed it, but because we showed others it could be defied." The terms of surrender were simple. The Dominion would withdraw entirely from Earth's solar system and recognize the sovereignty of the Coalition of Free Worlds. More significantly, they would acknowledge the right of any species to refuse integration into their empire. As the last Dominion ships departed Earth orbit, humanity faced a new challenge: reunification. The HFY Exodus fleets had established colonies on distant worlds, some of which were already thriving. Many humans had found new homes among the stars and had no desire to return. In Geneva, at the first assembly of the reformed United Earth Council, Dr. Reyes addressed the representatives of both Earth and the colonies. "We left as refugees," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "We return as explorers. Humanity's future was never meant to be confined to one world. The Exodus forced us to embrace our destiny among the stars sooner than we might have chosen. But in doing so, we discovered we were never alone." Ambassador Thelus, standing beside her, addressed the assembly next. "The Coalition of Free Worlds welcomes Earth not as a junior partner, but as its founder. Your species taught us that freedom requires more than hiding. It demands courage. and sacrifice. Commander Chen, who had led the resistance through the darkest days of occupation, rose to speak. We faced an enemy that believed power came from intimidation and control. We proved that true strength lies in adaptation and cooperation. The Dominion sought to make us subjects. Instead, we became catalysts for change across the galaxy. In the years that followed, humanity continued its expansion, no longer driven by necessity but by choice. Earth remained the spiritual home of the species, but human influence spread throughout the coalition territories. The diverse approaches to problem-solving that had once been Earth's internal cultural diversity now played out on a galactic scale. The Dominion, its aura of invincibility shattered, faced internal rebellions across its remaining territories. Within a decade, the once mighty empire had fractured into dozens of independent regions, some joining the coalition, others forming their own alliances. On the 5th anniversary of liberation, a monument was unveiled in the center of Geneva, a simple sphere of polished stone with a single crack running through it. The inscription read, "Sometimes the most powerful resistance isn't fighting back." Dr. Elena Reyes, now serving as Earth's representative to the Coalition Council, stood before the monument with Ambassador Thelis. The Viridian turned its luminescent gaze toward her. "Your species has a saying," Thelis noted. "Running away doesn't solve anything. Yet your exodus saved not only your own people but countless others across the galaxy." Reyes smiled. "We didn't run away, Ambassador. We ran toward something better. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't standing your ground. It's having the courage to find new ground when the old position becomes untenable." Above them, visible even in daylight, orbited the great shipyards where the next generation of exploration vessels was under construction. Earth had learned its lesson. Humanity's survival depended not on defending a single planet, but on spreading its legacy across the stars. The Dominion had sought tribute. Humanity had given the galaxy something far more valuable: hope. As night fell over Geneva, lights from 1,000 ships twinkled in the sky, a new constellation created by human ingenuity and determination. The Exodus had become a homecoming, and the flight from danger had transformed into a journey of discovery. The diaspora continued, not in fear, but in the spirit of adventure that had always defined humanity at its best. The Dominion had asked for Earth's submission. Earth's answer had changed the galaxy forever.